does it really cut the mustard that the Labour leader is denying there's a pact? Looking at those numbers, where the Labour Party is standing down in areas that the Lib Dems are doing well in, and the Lib Dems are standing down in areas that the Labour Party has traditionally done well in, it does look a little bit fishy, doesn't it?
No, not at all. And Tom, I've been doing a bit of research as well, so I've got a statistic for you. The number of candidates being stood across the whole of Britain: Labour, 5,300, Tories, 5,200. So there's no party fighting more seats across the whole country than the Labour Party. So that's the opposite of standing down. It's the Tories that are coming in second place. That's only in terms of candidates before the election has begun.
That's looking at the national picture, of course, but when we look at the regional picture in this, because that appears to be
this is GB
what's
News.
happening.
It's not Somerset News or Hartlepool News.
No, certainly not, but these
regions
make up the country, and of course it is these specific regions that will be making the difference on Thursday. It is interesting that, taking the southwest in particular, the Labour Party is not standing in as many seats, but they're standing in potentially more elsewhere. Maybe they're standing in more in London, in their areas that they traditionally do better in. And in the north east, the Lib Dems are standing down. Are you saying there's no link at all?
No, I don't believe there is a link. But I'll tell you what, first of all, there is no pact. And as a Labour activist and as someone that's worked in Parliament, I think I'd agree with all my colleagues that you'd never have a pact with the Lib Dems because they've broken so many promises. And the reasons why Lib Dems do quite well in parliamentary by-elections is because they're tactical and they pivot depending on which way the wind is blowing. And we all know, without rehashing it, how many broken promises there were in the coalition. Nick Clegg, just to pick one, for example, no tuition fees rise. We all know how that ended. But no, more broadly, let's go to one other point, which is, I think, your concern, which is why in some areas Labour is standing fewer candidates. But remember, your point of comparison is 2018. So that was just after the first Jeremy Corbyn general election. Labour had more MPs, it had more members, it had more money. These days, unfortunately, because Jeremy Corbyn led Labour to a very bad defeat the second time around, Labour has fewer MPs and less money. It's right that you marshal your financial resources accordingly.
That is an interesting and a valid point, I suppose, although there are differences in the regions there. It is true to say that the Labour Party has had dealings with the Liberal Democrats in the past. There are wide reports that only came out about 10 years after the 1997 election victory, of course, that we are celebrating or commemorating, or whatever word you want to use, an anniversary of that victory yesterday. There did seem to be some sort of pact in that year. Is it really beyond the realms of consideration that a lot of people who worked under the sort of Blairite vision of the Labour Party, who have now come back into working for Sir Keir Starmer, working in the leader of the opposition's office, might they not want to be bringing that back? Because it clearly did help the Labour Party into a historic victory in '97.
No, you've been studying your history, but I'm afraid you've got the wrong conclusion. So in 1997, perhaps for younger viewers, younger than you and I, Labour won by an absolute landslide. Tony Blair had a good personal relationship with the late Paddy Ashdown, who was a very articulate and I felt left-leaning person. He was also a war hero. Labour had a discussion with him in the mid-90s, and this is covered in some Labour cabinet ministers' memoirs. But then as Labour pulled ahead, and remember at some points, Tony Blair's opinion poll lead was about 28 percentage points before the general election. They realised there was no need to have any talks with the Lib Dems because Labour were on track for an historic victory. And you can see, obviously, basically in my lifetime, 40 years old, there's only been one parliament when the Lib Dems were relevant.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.